Well, the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit over and the United States government renewed interest on the continent. Arise News correspondent Nkechi Inana reports that the private sector was not left out. As a fast-growing sector on the continent, accounting for more than 80% of total production and two-thirds of investments within the economy, the summit highlighted how best the private sector can be harnessed. Shared a review of the prospects in a chat with one of the private sector participants, Linus Idahosa.
In President Biden's words, the United States is all in on Africa and all in with Africa. At the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, the private sector is recognized as a key player in development.
The fact that the conversation around Africa and the business prospects has taken a totally different dimension. What you'll find is a very strong retinue of minority black business owners, African entrepreneurs who have flown from different parts of the continent alongside their government folks to be here. The engagement has been quite robust. You find quite a number of seminars and conversations going on, public speakers, panelists and all that. But what you find interesting is the type of engagement that happens after those meetings. People are talking to themselves. You find that these are US business owners who have been talking about the idea of investing in Africa or doing business in Africa, but want to understand firsthand the challenges, the opportunities, the frailties, the shortcomings, and the promise, of doing business on the continent. It's not about these types of events. How pragmatic will they be afterwards? What's the follow-through? Would these conversations translate into businesses and deals being signed? I think that's what's most important. There seemed to be a renewed focus on youth and the digital space, the telecom space, and most importantly, businesses that are centered around empowering the next generation of folks who are concentrating on the future of work on the continent.
But for the home to the world's youngest and fastest growing population, there's also a potential challenge with misconceptions about investing in Africa.
The lack of knowledge about the continent is because of the many gaps in our communication, right? What for me was very surprising was the deep gap that exists between what exists on the continent and what the understanding is of business operators in this part of the world. So I think that there is a very strong need for that gap to be bridged. People really need to understand where the opportunities actually lie and how to access those opportunities. For example, Nigeria. For loads of investors who are looking at attracting investments to our country, would find that it seems to almost be like a hideous task, because there seems to be a perception already about the environment and all. And so our government and our private sectors alike would need to be able to champion a different story about Nigeria.
And Nigeria's creative industry took center stage at the summit as a driving force of Africa's growth.
There is a cultural connect between the United States and Africa, particularly Nigeria, and the role that Nigeria plays in the creative industry globally. The cultural influence Nigerian music and film has on the entire continent, and right now even the States. The number of awards that Nigerian musical artists have garnered over time, and the influence, all across, malls and parks and all that are songs. And the United States entertainment industry was also built along those lines, where people came in and saw the opportunity that lied within the space, and the 6-mile radius of Hollywood turned to a 30-mile radius, and the entire industry has been changed ever since. And so because we share a lot of things culturally, it makes all the sense for there to be a strategic relationship between the entertainment industry in the United States and, Africa's entertainment industry. Everyone has been talking about the potential for Nigeria's film industry and creative industry. We are the second largest film industry in the world that grew organically with little or no support. Right? Now is the time for a different type of structure to be built for the industry to take the industry to the next level. And what that structure is both digital and physical, right? So digital infrastructure will involve the creation of data centers to help content creators, be able to produce at little or no cost. And then the infrastructure to help structure the industry through a pilot program, like what we are doing. As you know, we are in partnership with the Lagos State government. We are investing in the setup of a film city in the Ejiri-Ekpe area of Lagos. And what that project is to be able to create an institute for filmmakers alongside sound stages. So we are bridging the gap between academia and industry. For those people who want to promote the creative genius of the continent will have a home. When you create an environment like this with the right incentives, tax incentives that can allow folks like the Netflixes, the Amazons, and the Hulus who are looking at coming into Africa and giving them a place where they can produce the right type of content they need, there's no other way to do it. Having the governments, both federal and state, paying a lot of attention on the creative industry, as the United States government is doing right now, and trying to find areas of connection, whether as policymakers or the sign of co-production treaties with our HBCUs here in the States who are looking at creating culturally relevant stories that can be commercially viable, not just domestically for us on the continent, but globally. So I think that we should have a bold vision, have a place where the creatives can actually thrive, have an economic zone created for the industry, and take this sector as a sector that would rival the oil and gas, the agri sectors in our country, because it can and it will.
The US-Africa Leaders Summit went beyond a policy mandate to leverage on the US business community to help bolster Africa's private sector. Nkechi Nana, Arise News, Washington, D.C.